For those of us growing up on the Nyack hillside in the 50s and 60s, South Mountain was our backyard, our personal, private wilderness kingdom. And today I'm going to take you on a quick ride around the mountain on Tweed Boulevard, revisiting some of our childhood haunts. Much is the same as it was, but things have changed. To begin with, although the mountain south of Nyack was, for more than 300 years, known as South Mountain, and indeed 100 years ago it was considered a tourist attraction and was the subject of picture postcards, today South Mountain is no longer in Nyack. You see, at the north end of New City, 10 miles from Nyack, there was a mountain called Little Tour, and at the base of Little Tour was a road called the South Mountain Road, so named because it ran south of the mountain. But in the 1980s, the Rockland County government was infiltrated, not by the communists we feared as kids, but by imbeciles from New York City. And when they looked out and saw that mountain to the north of New City, and saw the road was called South Mountain Road, they decided that must be South Mountain. So now, South Mountain is officially in New City. Very shortly after turning on to Tweed Boulevard, we come to an area the kids of my generation considered one of the most exciting places in the world. The rifle ranges of an abandoned World War I era army camp. You could reach it easily by a trail from the road through the woods. And there were many exciting things to be explored. Walls which once held targets, and blockhouses where they stored rifles and ammunition. But the thing which totally captivated us were a series of tunnels which had been built to allow soldiers to safely move from one rifle range to another while live fire was going on above them. There wasn't much to them. They were essentially 500-foot-long underground hallways, but between the ages of 9 and 11, we found walking through them exhilarating. By the age of 12, we had turned our attentions to the adventure of trying to ride our bicycles all the way around the mountain. This usually involved pushing the bicycle up the steep hills, so it was a fairly lengthy process. In those days, there were almost no cars and even fewer people on the mountain. Today, it's different. Here you see a cross-country skier making his way down one of the trails on a frigid winter weekday afternoon. In summer, the trails are downright crowded. In our time, despite the presence of poisonous snakes and wild animals, our parents considered the mountain a completely safe place for the unsupervised play of 10 and 11-year-old boys, and we ourselves didn't think there was anything dangerous there. Well, okay, there was one area where we were scared to death. Where the road turns and heads back towards the cliff, at the end of the straight there was a small dirt lane which led to a ramshackle cabin, and that cabin was reputed to be occupied by devil worshippers. Needless to say, we went through that area as fast as we could. The cabin's gone today. It's been replaced by a series of multi-million-dollar mansions perched right on the edge of the cliff overlooking the river. They're owned by some of the richest people around. I'll leave it to you to decide whether their acquisition of money involved some sort of relationship with the devil. Immediately past the cabin, we start heading up a very steep hill towards what was once known worldwide as one of America's natural wonders. It was a huge boulder perched right at the very peak of the mountain. It was called Balance Rock, and it's gone. In the early 60s, local officials became convinced that despite the fact that the boulder weighed close to 750,000 pounds and was firmly wedged between outcroppings of bedrocks, that at some point 10 or 15 high school students would, as some sort of senior prank, lift the boulder from its perch and carry it 50 feet to the edge of the cliff, then roll it down into the village below. In 1967, to prevent the death and destruction which they were sure would follow such an act, without any sort of public discussion, they dispatched a road crew to the site and had them break balanced rock into 1,000,000 pieces. Just down the road, there's another tourist attraction, sometimes known as Bird's Eye View. It was also called Point Lookout. It was a sheer cliff, several hundred feet above and directly behind Nyack College. The views from there were breathtaking. As 11 and 12-year-olds, we frequently camped out there, and several years later, as teenagers with driver's licenses, we took our girlfriends there for activities of an entirely different sort. Leaving Point Lookout, we begin a long, steep decline. Halfway down the hill, on the right-hand side of the road, is South Mountain Pond. Now, actually, it's not much of a pond. The water and the mud around it stunk to high heaven. But we loved it. We spent many happy winter afternoons skating and playing hockey there. And in summer, one year we actually built rafts and navigated around the swamp. Almost too soon, we reached the big horseshoe curve that leads us to Bradley Parkway, and once again, we leave the Magic Kingdom behind us.